Hello everyone, tonight we are stepping quietly into a world that hums with danger and shadows, a place where the grasslands ripple under silver moonlight and ancient beasts roam ever watchful. You shuffle along your boots, sinking slightly into the soft earth as the chorus of night insects fills your ears. There beneath a spindly tree that barely casts a shadow, you spot it, the dinosaur that barely sleeps. One eye glints in the starlight wide open, fixed on something far beyond your sight. The other eye, well, that one's shut tight as if clinging to dreams it doesn't dare fully enter. It's been like this for weeks, and you probably won't survive out here tonight not without a bit of luck, or maybe the same trick this creature uses. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. I wouldn't want you to promise something you don't mean. And drop a comment below with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love knowing where these stories are keeping folks awake. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You crouch behind a fallen log, heart racing not from fear exactly, but from that electric hum of being somewhere you shouldn't be. The night is cool, the breeze dry and thin, carrying the scent of cracked mud and ancient plants that haven't changed much since these plains first rolled out under the stars. The dinosaur shifts its weight, massive clawed toes curling and flexing, pressing into the dust like it's testing the ground for something hidden below. A thin mist rises from the low ground near a dried riverbed, and for a moment you think you see shapes, other watchers, other eyes, but they're gone as fast as your breath. The grass sways in slow, deliberate waves, whispering secrets of old migrations and long-lost battles. Somewhere in the distance, a pack of nocturnal predators lets out a chorus of yips and clicks, the sound sharp and eerie, enough to send a chill up your spine. But this dinosaur, it doesn't flinch. The open eye tracks the night, gliding from one threat to another, but the rest of its body stays in that half-limp, half-tensed pose of a creature that sleeps with one foot in the dream world and one still rooted in harsh reality. It's hard to imagine, right? Sleeping like that, half your brain switched off, the other half wired tighter than a drum. But that's what the fossils hinted at, or at least what some paleontologists argue. A certain predator species believed to have roamed this region about 70 million years ago developed this bizarre habit. They point to the ridges of the skull, asymmetrical wear patterns in the teeth, and even the structure of the inner ear. Historians still debate whether this truly means the dinosaur mastered unihemispheric sleep, like today's dolphins and some birds, or if we're just projecting modern ideas onto ancient bones. What's certain is this: these plains weren't kind to those who dozed too deeply. You think about it as you watch the dinosaur settle, a little lower chest rising and falling in slow rhythm, that open eye never wavering. There's something oddly human in its exhaustion, in that determined refusal to let its guard down. You imagine its dreams, if it even lets itself have any, must be sparse, fragmented things. Flickers of memory, flashes of the chase, maybe the feel of the wind when it was a hatchling sprinting across these same plains. A cloud drifts over the moon, and for a heartbeat the land goes darker than dark. You grip the log tighter. The sounds change, fewer chirps, more rustling, as if something big is moving out there, testing the night's edge. Maybe that's why the dinosaur sleeps the way it does. Maybe it's because of nights like this, when the dark feels heavier and every breeze could be the breath of something waiting to strike. And speaking of strange things, the grass here, did you notice scientists once found pollen in fossilized dung samples that suggested some of these ancient plains supported a species of grass that, in a weird twist, is related to modern rice? Yep, the ancestors of your sushi's best friend might have once brushed against this dinosaur's flanks as it trudged through the dark. The dinosaur shifts again, that open eye narrowing slightly, focusing on some unseen threat. The wind changes direction and you catch a whiff of something musky, feral, the kind of scent that makes you wish you were anywhere but here. Whatever's out there, the dinosaur smells it too. But it doesn't rise, doesn't bolt. It stays. because to move would mean to reveal its position, and to close both eyes would mean to risk everything. Your own eyelids grow heavy just watching. The hypnotic rise and fall of its breath, the endless stare into the unknown, it's enough to make you forget the dangers for a second, but only a second. The grass rustles sharply, a crack of a twig. A shape darts between the trees at the edge of the clearing. You hold your breath. Then, with agonizing slowness, the dinosaur lowers its head just a little more. The open eye remains, staring, watching, waiting. And you realize this is how it survives. Not through speed or strength alone, but through endless grinding vigilance. Through weeks of half-sleep, half-wakefulness, where the only constant is that one eye always open, always watching. And somewhere out there, hidden in the blackness, another predator slinks away, realizing it has lost the element of surprise tonight. You shift your weight slightly behind the fallen log, trying not to snap any twigs underfoot. Because let's be real, you don't want to be the reason the dinosaur's vigilance was justified tonight. The eye, the one that stays open, gleams faintly in the moonlight, reflecting a pale glow like polished stone. And you wonder, how does it do it? How does this creature balance on the razor's edge between slumber and survival, holding off the full embrace of rest for so long? It's like watching someone teeter on the brink of sleep during a long, boring lecture. Except here, the cost of nodding off isn't embarrassment. It's becoming someone's midnight snack. That eye doesn't just watch aimlessly. It scans. Every twitch of grass, every flicker of shadow is noted and filed away. The brain behind it is half awake, half dreaming, with one hemisphere switched on processing threats and the other tucked into that fragile realm of rest. If that sounds familiar, it should. This trick isn't unique to dinosaurs. Some birds do it floating along with one eye open against the endless sky. Dolphins, too, taking turns resting one side of the brain, while the other keeps an eye out for sharks or nosy researchers. Historians still debate whether this dinosaur developed this skill purely for survival or if it came bundled with other traits like keen night vision or an unusual sense of smell that let it see the world even in near total dark. You lean forward curious despite yourself as the dinosaur's eye shifts your way. For just a heartbeat, you feel like you've been made, like that gaze pierced the night and pinned you to your hiding spot. But no. It's scanning past you, following the sound of distant footfalls. Probably something smaller, braver, or dumber than you. Maybe one of those little scavenger lizards that think they're hot stuff until a bigger predator shows up. The night presses in, filled with soft noises, the hum of insects. The chirr of something winged in the branches above the faint rustle of a breeze that smells faintly of ash. There must have been a wildfire out on the plains earlier in the week because the air carries that burnt sweetness like the world's biggest campfire just went out. The dinosaur breathes it in nostrils, flaring slightly, weighing the danger. You can almost hear its inner dialogue fires past. Ash means nothing now, but the scents carried on that same wind. That's what matters. You know, while we're here, fun fact to file away for your next trivia night, Amber. That fossilized tree sap prized by ancient cultures and Jurassic Park enthusiasts alike sometimes contains preserved dinosaur skin impressions. Not bones skin. So somewhere locked inside a golden droplet, no bigger than your thumbnail, could be the pattern of this very creature's scales frozen in time while the world around it changed and burned. The dinosaur shifts its weight, again, one heavy foot settling deeper into the dust. And you notice how it positions itself. It's subtle but unmistakable. The open eye faces the broadest stretch of open ground, the side most exposed to threat. The closed eye faces the thickets where the shadows are dense and the risk of ambush lower. There's a logic to this, a strategy. This isn't just a creature too nervous to sleep, it's a tactician playing the odds every night, balancing fatigue against survival. The moon creeps higher, casting the clearing in sharper light, silvering the edges of every leaf and stone. You see how the dinosaur's hide seems to shimmer, not with magic or mystery, but with dust and dew that settled on its back during these long sleepless nights. The kind of detail you'd miss if you weren't out here in the dark, if you weren't creeping around like some kind of prehistoric paparazzi. And still the eye stays open. It blinks but never closes fully. It's as if the dinosaur is saying, "Nice try sleep, but not tonight." You can't help but respect that. Even as the hours drag on, even as exhaustion surely nips at the edges of its awareness, it keeps that one hemisphere awake, alert, watching. There's a certain poetry in it. Or maybe that's just the sleep deprivation talking. Suddenly, there's a new sound, a low growl far off but moving closer. The dinosaur doesn't stir much, just the barest twitch of its open eye toward the sound. You see it, then the calculation, the weighing of risks. This is the dance it knows by heart. Let the eye follow the threat, let the body conserve energy, let the other half of the brain rest while it can. Because come dawn, there will be another night to face another round of this endless, sleepless vigil. Historians still debate whether this species ever truly slept at all, or if what it did was more like a permanent state of half-alert trance. The fossil evidence is thin on this front. After all, sleep doesn't fossilize. But some argue that the asymmetry in wear on its teeth or even slight differences in bone density on one side of the skull point to long-term uneven usage. Others say we're just seeing coincidence, that we're projecting our romantic notions of the noble sleepless sentinel onto a creature that probably just napped like everything else. But tonight you believe the story of the one-eyed sentinel, because that eye wide and watchful under the ghostly moon says all it needs to say. The night deepens, and with it the sense that you are utterly out of place in this primeval world. You tuck yourself closer to the ground, the soil cool and gritty against your skin, trying to blend into the landscape as best you can. The dinosaur's open eye still roves the darkness, steady and unblinking, as if daring the shadows to make a move. And you start to feel what it must feel, that relentless thrum of tension, that knowledge that the night isn't merely a time of rest, but a gauntlet of unseen threats. You hear them before you see them. Soft footfalls, the snap of brittle stems, the whisper of scaled bodies sliding through undergrowth. The predators and scavengers of the night are on the move. They're not the hulking giants that dominate paintings and museum halls. No, these are the smaller, cleverer dangers. The ones that work in packs, the ones that slip between trees and rocks, sniffing out the weak, the slow, the distracted. The ones that would love nothing more than to find a dinosaur asleep and unaware. You think of how humans today worry about locking doors and checking windows before bed, and it strikes you that this dinosaur in its own way is doing the same. Except instead of locks, it has that vigilant eye. Instead of windows, it has the open plain bathed in ghostly moonlight. And instead of the luxury of walls, it has only its wits and the endless expanse of grass and dirt. The predators are close now. You glimpse them, low shapes, dark against darker shadows, moving with the eerie coordination of hunters who don't need to speak to know what the others are thinking. Their eyes glint occasionally, catching stray beams of starlight, and you feel your heart pound harder. But the dinosaur, it doesn't flinch. It breathes slow and deep, keeping still, its eye following the pack's movements with the precision of a watchtower spotlight. Historians still debate whether this species faced more threats from predators or from other members of its own kind. Some evidence points to a surprising number of healed bite marks on fossilized bones, perhaps signs of intra-species conflict, territorial battles fought under the cover of night. Others argue these wounds came from smaller predators trying their luck. Either way, the result was the same, a life where dropping your guard even for a moment could mean the end. And still, despite the danger, there's beauty here. The night is alive with sound and motion. The predators pause, listening to some signal you can't hear, then move on, their forms melting into the distance. The dinosaur shifts slightly, settling deeper into its half-sleep, the tension in its massive shoulders easing by the tiniest fraction. You almost feel like cheering, but you don't dare break the quiet. Speaking of quiet, did you know that some modern reptiles can detect seismic vibrations through their jawbones? There's a theory floating around that this dinosaur might have had a similar trick up its scaly sleeve, able to sense the tremors of an approaching threat through the ground itself. Imagine that sleeping with one eye open and your head on a natural alarm system. The breeze picks up again, carrying with it a fresher scent rain, perhaps from far-off mountains. The predators are gone now, but the dinosaur doesn't close that eye. It stays open, vigilant, as if daring the night to throw something else its way. You can't help but respect the sheer stubbornness of it. Weeks of this night after night. No wonder its kind endured as long as it did. A faint glow touches the horizon, false dawn, or maybe just your imagination longing for morning. You blink hard, realizing how heavy your own eyelids have become just watching this creature's endless vigil. The dinosaur, though, shows no sign of yielding. That open eye is a promise: not tonight, not yet. And somewhere in the grass you hear the soft chirp of an insect you don't recognize, a little reminder that even in a world ruled by tooth and claw, the small voices still find a way to sing. The air thickens as the night wears on heavy with the promise of rain. You feel it in the sudden hush that falls over the plains, as if even the wind is holding its breath. The dinosaur, that silent sentinel of the shadows, remains still beneath the gnarled silhouette of a tree that looks like it gave up growing centuries ago. Its eye, the one that refuses the comfort of sleep, gleams brighter now, reflecting the first threads of lightning flickering on the horizon. And you start to question your decision to creep through these lands tonight. The rain is coming, and out here it's not just water. It's a signal, a shift, a challenge. A low rumble shakes the ground, so faint at first you think you imagined it, but then it comes again, stronger, rolling through to the soil beneath your feet. Thunder. Yes, but also the sound of a world bracing for the storm. The dinosaur lifts its head slightly, nostrils flaring as it scents the air, reading it like a scholar poring over ancient text. Rain means softened earth, flooded burrows, new dangers. And yet, it stays where it is, that open eye never closing, watching the clouds gather like bruises in the sky. Historians still debate whether this species sought shelter during storms or whether its size and toughness let it endure the elements without flinching. Some argue that the ridges found along fossilized skulls might have supported keratinous crests that channeled water away from sensitive areas. Others say those ridges were for display or combat, and that these dinosaurs simply endured rain pouring off them like off a boulder. But you watching now feel sure this one isn't seeking cover. It's hunkering down, trusting its vigilance more than any hollow or cave. The first drops fall fat and cold, splashing against leaves, stone, and scale. The sound is soothing at first, a soft drumming, like fingers tapping on an old table. But it builds quickly, the storm eager to make its presence known. The dinosaur lowers its head, that open eye now shielded slightly by a heavy brow ridge, but still watching, always watching. You can barely see through the curtain of rain now, but that eye, it pierces the storm, or so it seems. And here's an odd little aside for you, something to tuck away for the next time you're trying to sound clever at a dinner party. Fossilized raindrop impressions have been found in ancient sediment layers, giving scientists clues about prehistoric weather patterns. Imagine that even the rain leaves its mark, a kind of signature across the ages. Maybe this very storm would have done the same if the land hadn't shifted and swallowed its traces. You huddle tighter beneath your makeshift shelter. Water trickling down your neck, mud oozing around your boots. The storm isn't just rain now. It's wind, sharp and cold, tugging at the grass, bending trees, flattening the landscape under its roar. But the dinosaur remains a stubborn figure amid the chaos. That eye glimmers each time lightning splits the sky, catching the electric fire for just a breath before the world goes dark again. And you realize something as the rain blurs your vision as the storm deafens you. This creature's sleeplessness isn't just about fear. It's about mastery. About reading the world, the weather, the threats, and staying one step ahead. You could almost laugh at how you thought you might outsneak it tonight. The storm rages on, and you feel the land drink it in. The dry cracks in the earth swell shut, the dust turns to muck, the scent of the air becomes raw and clean like a slate-wiped bear. Yet through it all, the dinosaur doesn't yield to the temptation of full sleep. Not even now when most predators would retreat when the night hides more than it reveals. That one eye stays open, the last beacon in a drowned world. And somewhere above the clouds answer with another boom, another jagged bolt of light. And you wonder if the dinosaur sees shapes in the lightning like you do. Faces, claws, memories of ancestors long gone. Or maybe it sees only what's real, a world that never stops testing those who dare to close both eyes. The storm has passed, leaving the plains drenched and steaming as if the land itself exhales after holding its breath too long. The air is thick with the mingled smells of wet grass, churned mud, and something sharper, something that turns your stomach before you even see it. You creep forward, drawn by instinct, though every sensible part of you screams to stay hidden. And then you spot it not 20 paces from the sleepless dinosaur, the carcass of some unfortunate creature bloated and split by the storm's violence, or maybe by whatever found it first. The dinosaur does not move toward the carcass. It doesn't even glance at it, though. You know it smells the same sickly sweetness that chokes your throat. Instead, that single open eye stays fixed on the distance on the horizon where new threats might emerge, where the next test of its vigilance might already be creeping closer. You have to respect that kind of focus. You really do. Meanwhile, you're fighting the urge to gag at the stench. Historians still debate whether these dinosaurs scavenged opportunistically or avoided carrion altogether to reduce the risk of infection. Some fossilized teeth suggest occasional bone crunching, but not enough to say definitively that they were regular scavengers. The debate gets heated in certain circles, probably more than it should, considering we're talking about creatures that haven't walked the earth for millions of years. But here tonight, the choice is clear. The dinosaur isn't interested. The price of distraction is too high. The carcass draws in the night's other players. You hear them before you see them, snuffling, slinking shapes that move low and fast through the grass. A chorus of squabbling growls rises up as the scavengers descend, fighting over the spoils the storm delivered. You see glints of teeth, flashes of claw, the writhing dance of predators too small to tackle anything healthy but eager to tear into what's already dead. The dinosaur shifts its stance, just slightly adjusting its weight so it can keep that open eye trained on both the carcass and the shadows beyond. There's no panic, no sign of fear. Just that same cold, calculating watchfulness. It knows, as you do, that where small scavengers gather, larger hunters aren't far behind. And tonight, with the air still charged from the storm, with the earth soft and treacherous underfoot, the risk is even greater. And here's a strange tidbit for you. Did you know? Ancient frogs, yes, frogs once left their hibernation burrows after storms like these, creating sudden bursts of amphibian activity that might have drawn predators' attention. Imagine being a dinosaur trying to ignore a symphony of croaks while you're already on high alert. Nature loves adding unnecessary background noise, doesn't it? A gust of wind cooler now ruffles the grass and sends the scent of the carcass washing over you again. You gag quietly, you hope, but the dinosaur doesn't even blink. That open eye glints like a polished stone under the faint starlight that's begun to reclaim the sky from the storm. It watches as the scavengers tear and bicker, watches as the night rearranges itself once more into a hierarchy of hunger and survival. You can't help but marvel at its patience. The sleepless dinosaur is a study in endurance. Weeks of split attention, of fighting the body's craving for full rest, of trusting that single vigilant eye to keep death at bay. No wonder its kind survived as long as it did. No wonder the bones they left behind are marked with the evidence of battles won and dangers endured. The scavengers scatter, suddenly vanishing into the grass as if the night itself swallowed them whole. You feel it too, the change in the air, the silent arrival of something larger, more dangerous. The dinosaur tenses the muscles along its flank, rippling under the damp hide. But the eye stays open, open, always watching. And you, hidden and helpless, can only do the same. The plains feel heavier now, as if the storm's weight still presses down on every blade of grass, on every breath you take. You lie low, heart thudding against the wet earth, while the dinosaur stands like a statue of sleeplessness, that single open eye reflecting the faint starlight that trickles through the shredded clouds. You can almost hear the gears turning in its head, the constant calculation. The vigilance that's been honed not over nights or seasons, but through the slow grind of evolution. How does a creature come to this? How does a dinosaur end up trading deep, peaceful sleep for endless half-rest and ceaseless alertness? You picture it, generation upon generation of hatchlings born into a world where falling fully asleep meant disappearing by dawn. The small ones, the unlucky ones who dared, both eyes shut, didn't make it long enough to leave their mark. But the ones who learned, the ones who cracked the code of sleepless survival, they thrived. Slowly their brains changed, adapting to let one half slumber while the other kept watch. Historians still debate whether this was a direct response to predator pressure or simply an accidental advantage that became essential over time. As usual, the bones don't tell the whole story. You shift slightly, trying to get a clearer view of the dinosaur's face, and you're struck again by its sheer weariness. Not in the sense of weakness, no, but in the weight it carries, the cost of sleeplessness etched into every line of its brow, every slow, deliberate blink of that one eye. The half of the brain that rests must hunger for deeper sleep, for the kind of dreams that last more than a heartbeat. But it's a hunger denied night after night. And because I can't help myself, here's a weird little aside. Some species of modern ants have been observed taking micro-naps of mere seconds while still on duty. No pillow, no bed, just pause, blink, go. Maybe this dinosaur was the ant of its age, caught in a cycle of tiny stolen rests. The wind shifts again, carrying the scent of the earlier carcass and something else, something fresher, sharper. The dinosaur's nostrils flare and its open eye narrows, focused now on some point beyond your sight. You feel the hair on your neck rise. Whatever it sensed, it's coming closer, silent and deliberate. You almost want to whisper to the dinosaur, to tell it to run, to hide, to give in and close that weary eye. But of course it won't. It can't. Its entire being is shaped by this moment, the endless balancing act between sleep and survival. You wonder, not for the first time tonight, how long a creature can keep this up. Weeks, yes, but at what cost? Even the most hardened survivor must eventually pay the toll for sleeplessness. Maybe that's why some fossils show signs of stress, fractures of bones worn thin by the weight of constant vigilance. Or maybe, as some argue, those injuries came from battles or desperate chases. The truth is, the evidence is thin, and the debate will likely rage on as long as people stare at ancient bones and try to read their secrets. The dinosaur shifts again, angling its body so that the open eye has the clearest possible view of the night beyond. Its breath comes slower now, measured, as if it settled into this strange rhythm of half-rest. The starlight glimmers on the wet ground, casting fleeting reflections like ghostly fires in the dark. And still, the dinosaur watches. And you, hidden among the roots and rocks, watch with it. You start to see the world through that sleepless eye, every shadow a threat, every breeze a warning, every sound a puzzle to solve. The night stretches on, and you feel for the first time the true weight of what it means to survive here. Not through strength alone, not through speed or ferocity, but through the endless grinding vigilance of a creature that sleeps with one eye open, because it must. The storm-washed plains are quiet now, too quiet. You lie there, the mud cool against your skin, listening as the night rebuilds itself after the storm's fury. But the silence isn't comforting. It's the kind that pricks at your senses that makes you strain to hear what might be lurking beyond the veil of darkness. And then you catch it, a sound so subtle it might have been the breeze, if the breeze could lie. It starts as a distant call, a soft melodic note that rises and falls like the voice of something harmless, a nesting bird maybe, or a size small mammal seeking its mate. But you see at the dinosaur's open eye sharpen the pupil, narrowing slightly, its gaze locking onto the direction of the sound. You freeze, feeling the tension ripple from the beast as if it were a physical force. That call isn't what it seems. It's a mimic. Another call answers this one closer, echoing the first so perfectly you'd swear it was the same creature moving fast. But it's not. You know it, the dinosaur knows it, and somewhere out there, the true source waits for a mistake, a slip, a step, the tiniest break in the rhythm of sleepless vigilance. The dinosaur shifts not much but enough to angle its open eye toward the threat muscles coiled beneath its thick hide. Historians still debate whether these ancient predators developed such mimicry through evolutionary arms races with prey like this sleepless dinosaur, or whether it was simply one of nature's many coincidences. The fossil record offers no direct clues, only the scars on bones that suggest trickery played a part in the ancient hunt. The calls grow bolder closer, their rhythm tightening like a noose. You can almost admire the cunning at play. Almost, but the dinosaur doesn't fall for it. That open eye gleams in the faint starlight, unblinking, tracking every shift in sound, every change in the air. It's as if the creature's brain is a living map of the night's dangers, updating in real time with every false note and hidden footstep. Here's a strange little fact for you. While we're both holding our breath in some modern birds like lyrebirds, mimicry has evolved to such an absurd degree that they can imitate chainsaws, camera shutters, and human speech. Imagine that level of deception at work here in the deep past, except instead of fooling tourists, it's fooling creatures who don't get a second chance if they're wrong. The mimic calls fall silent. At last the game abandoned or postponed. You don't know if it's because the predator realized its ploy failed, or because it's slinking closer, ready to switch from trickery to force. But the dinosaur remains motionless, save for the slow, steady movement of its sides as it breathes. That open eye stays trained on the darkness, a silent defiance against the night's games. You feel the tension drain from the land just a little, as if the world itself breathes easier knowing the trap didn't spring tonight. But the dinosaur doesn't relax, not truly. It can't. The night is far from over, and the price of even a moment's peace is too steep to pay. And somewhere beyond the edge of your vision, the mimic slinks away, blending back into the shadows, leaving only questions in its wake. The night stretches on the stars, wheeling above like silent witnesses to the endless vigil below. You stay low, hidden in the damp grass, watching the dinosaur, this lonely sentinel that refuses the gift of full rest. Its open eye glows faintly, catching the shimmer of starlight on the rain-slick earth. You start to see the story written in its posture, in the lines of muscle held taut against fatigue. This is a creature that walks alone, that has learned through bitter necessity to trust only itself. Once perhaps it didn't have to. Once maybe these plains echoed with the calls of others like it. Mates-kin companions who shared the burden of watching the night. But those voices are gone now. Whether by chance, disease, or the slow grinding loss of habitat and prey, this dinosaur's kind dwindled until solitude became its only companion. You feel the weight of that isolation as heavy as the humid night air, as you watch the creature shift its stance. The open eye scanning not just for danger, but for something it no longer dares to hope will appear. Historians still debate whether this species was truly solitary by nature or whether circumstances forced it into loneliness. Some fossil sites suggest group nesting grounds, while others show individuals spaced far apart as if even in life they kept their distance. The evidence is fragmentary, the theories many. But what you see tonight feels clear. This dinosaur's sleeplessness is not just a defense against predators, it's the price it pays for having no one else to share the watch. A breeze stirs the grasses, bringing with it the faint, sweet scent of some ancient flower blooming in defiance of the storm's destruction. The dinosaur lifts its head, slightly, nostrils flaring, the open eye narrowing as it reads the night anew. You wonder what it feels in that moment? Does the scent stir memory? Does it recall a time when the night wasn't just a battlefield of shadows and hidden threats? And because it wouldn't be one of my stories without a quirky fact, did you know some modern reptiles, like certain geckos, can recognize the chemical signatures of their relatives, even after long separations? Imagine the ghostly traces of kin lingering on the breeze, stirring the heart of a creature that believes itself alone. The dinosaur lowers its head again, that open eye never faltering. It stays sharp, stays present, refusing the comfort of sleep, even as the night drags on. You see the toll it takes, subtle tremors along the flanks, the slow, deliberate blinks that speak of exhaustion kept barely at bay. But it endures, because it must, because no one else is coming. And you, hidden and small in the grand scheme of this ancient world, can only watch in quiet awe at the strength it takes to stand alone in the dark week after week, eye open, heart steady. You follow the dinosaur's slow, deliberate path as it leaves the storm-cleansed clearing behind its massive feet, sinking slightly into the softened earth with each step. The air hums with the afterglow of rain, thick with the scent of wet stone and crushed grass. The dinosaur moves toward a place you hadn't noticed before, a hollow between two low ridges, a shadow dip in the land that seems to swallow even the moonlight. The cursed hollow, the locals might have called it, if locals had existed in these ancient times. A place where nothing lingers long, where the air feels heavy and wrong. The dinosaur pauses at the edge of this dark basin, that sleepless eye scanning the hollow's depths. You can feel the weight of its hesitation, the memory of dangers woven into the very soil. You've heard the old stories well. Okay, maybe not you personally, but the kind of stories that would have been whispered if ancient creatures had legends. They say that those who entered this hollow didn't return, that even the wind seemed to avoid it, skirting the edges like a wary animal. And now here you are, breath held, watching as the dinosaur debates whether to risk this cursed ground. Historians still debate whether certain low-lying areas like this served as natural traps for unwary creatures. Fossil beds packed with the remains of many species in one place suggest sudden floods, hidden tar pits, or volcanic gases might have turned safe ground deadly without warning. Others argue these sites were simply places where scavengers dragged their kills, creating the illusion of mass death. Either way, this hollow carries the weight of those possibilities. The dinosaur senses it too. You can tell by the way it shifts its stance, the way that open eye widens just slightly, taking in every inch of shadow. The hollow seems to hum with quiet menace. No insects buzz here, no nightbirds call. The grass at its edges grows sparse and brittle, as if the earth itself refuses to nurture life within. But the dinosaur steps forward slowly, deliberately. It knows it has no choice. The night offers no safe haven, only risks to be weighed and endured. And so it enters the hollow, every muscle tight with readiness. That sleepless eye sweeping from one side to the other in a silent plea, let me pass in peace. And while we're talking about strange hollows, here's an odd little fact for you. Some ancient desert lizards were known to dig spiraling burrows not to live in, but to trap moisture and cool their bodies during the scorching day. Nature loves building mysteries into the landscape, whether for survival or apparently for making sure we have something to puzzle over millions of years later. The dinosaur reaches the hollow's center, where the soil turns dark and slick with ancient decay. You feel the tension in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. though the sky above is clear. Now the stars bright and cold. The dinosaur lowers its head slightly, that open eye searching, because here, more than anywhere, there's no margin for error. And the hollow for tonight at least grants safe passage. The dinosaur moves on, leaving no mark but a few deep prints in the damp earth. Its vigil unbroken. Its lonely journey through the night continuing. You trail the dinosaur at a respectful distance, boots squelching in the mud, though you do your best to stay silent. The hollow lies behind now, that cursed dip in the land, swallowed once more by shadow and mist. Ahead, the plains open wide again, and the stars seem a little brighter, as if relieved the danger of the hollow has passed. But the dinosaur doesn't relax, not for a heartbeat. That sleepless eye keeps its tireless watch, sweeping the horizon, scanning the dark for threats both real and imagined. Your eyes are drawn to the shape of its skull, as the creature tilts its head to better track some sound you can't hear. The bones catch the starlight, revealing subtle ridges and grooves that speak of ancient strength, and the passage of uncounted nights like this one. And you remember the scholars, the ones who pieced together this puzzle from fragments of fossilized bone, from teeth, from the faintest impressions left in rock hardened by the weight of ages. Historians still debate what those fragments truly tell us. Some point to the asymmetry in certain fossil skulls, one side more worn, more robust, as if used more often, more tensely. They argue that this, combined with evidence of uneven tooth wear and slight variations in inner ear structures, suggests a life lived in constant, lopsided vigilance. Others say it's all coincidence, that the marks and ridges are the result of injury, of normal variation, of ancient accidents that left scars we're misreading as signs of sleeplessness. The arguments go on as they always do. But out here under these stars, you feel like you know the truth. You can see it in that single watchful eye. The dinosaur pauses at a rocky outcrop, resting one massive foot on a stone worn smooth by wind and time. The open eye surveys the land. The closed side of its face turned toward the cliffs where no threat is likely to come. There's a quiet genius to this, positioning a strategy born of long practice. You almost want to applaud, but you settle for breathing quietly, not wanting to draw its attention. And speaking of cliffs, did you know that some ancient bird species nested only on sheer cliff faces, their eggs balanced in cracks and crevices where no predator could reach? A risky business, sure, but sometimes the edge is the safest place to be. Maybe that's what this dinosaur seeks tonight. Its own version of the cliff. A spot where the night's dangers can only come from one direction. The breeze freshens, cool and clean, the storm's residue finally swept away. The dinosaur breathes it in deeply, nostrils flaring, tasting the air. Its stance shifts just slightly, muscles easing, not relaxed, not yet, but settled into that odd balance of half-rest, half-readiness that defines its nights. You see the toll of it, though, the faint shudder in its flanks, the tiny tremor in the massive neck that speaks of exhaustion kept barely at bay. And still the eye remains open. You wonder how many nights it has stood like this, how many weeks of broken rest of watching, while others slept of surviving on vigilance alone. And you wonder, too, how many more it can endure. The dinosaur moves on at last, the rocky ground giving way to softer soil. Its journey through the night continues, one eye open, one eye shut, always seeking the dawn that might finally grant it peace. The night's chill deepens as you follow the dinosaur farther across the plains. The air feels sharper now, as if the storm had scrubbed it clean, leaving behind a world raw and new. You pull your jacket tighter, though you doubt it would do much against the bite of this prehistoric cold. Ahead, the dinosaur slows, its massive form outlined against the faint shimmer of the horizon, where the first hint of dawn tries to break through. But the eye, the one that refuses to close, still glows amber in the moonlight, a jewel set in rough, weathered stone. That eye is a marvel, you think. Not just for its color, though the amber hue is striking like molten gold hardened by age. It's the gaze itself, the intensity, the refusal to yield, the way it seems to burn with an inner light that outshines the stars above. The dinosaur lowers its head slightly, scanning the ground ahead. And you see how the eye catches and reflects the night, as if it holds the memory of all the dangers that have ever stalked these plains. Historians still debate whether this dinosaur's vision was truly superior, or whether its sleeplessness was a strategy that compensated for other weaknesses. Some argue that the fossilized structures of the eye sockets, large and forward-facing, suggest a predator's keen sight adapted for low light. Others point to wear patterns and microfractures in the bones around the orbits, claiming these speak of repeated stress, of eyes strained too long of a creature that had to push its senses to the edge just to survive. The arguments loop endlessly like the night itself. The dinosaur pauses at a low rise, lifting its head, the amber eye catching the moon one last time before the pale glow of dawn begins to wash the land in gray. You can feel it, the weariness in its bones, the weight of endless nights spent like this, one eye always open, one part of its mind always straining to read the dark. And here's a strange aside to tuck away for later: amber, that fossilized tree resin, so prized for its beauty, sometimes contains not just insects but tiny air bubbles, ancient breaths trapped forever. Imagine if that eye, that molten gaze, could have been preserved the same way. A window into the sleepless nights of ages past, frozen for us to wonder at. The wind rises, gentle but persistent, ruffling the dinosaur's hide, tugging at the grasses, stirring the dust. The dinosaur stands firm, the amber eye still open, still watching, as if determined to see the night through to its bitter end. You feel a strange kinship in that moment, you and this ancient beast, two watchers at the edge of dawn, bound by the quiet, by the cold, by the need to witness the world as it is before it changes again. And so, it waits, heart of stone, eye of amber, as the first rays of sun finally begin to creep across the horizon, and the night yields reluctantly to the day. The first light of dawn spills across the plains, a soft silver wash that blurs the sharp edges of the night. You feel the warmth of it on your face, weak but welcome. And you watch as the dinosaur, that sleepless sentinel, lifts its head to greet the morning. The amber eye still open, still watchful, glints in the new light like a smoldering coal that refuses to burn out. And for the first time tonight, you see what all this vigilance has truly been for, not for itself alone, but for the fragile forms that emerge now from the shadows. They're hidden in a thicket during the long night, young ones. A small clutch of juveniles, their limbs still awkward, their hides softer, their eyes wide with wonder and fear at the world around them. They creep from their shelter, blinking at the sun, unaware of the dangers that stalked so close while they slept. But the dinosaur knew. The sleepless stare, the endless scanning of the dark, it was all for them, to buy them one more dawn, to give them a chance at another day. Historians still debate whether this species had parental care as advanced as what we see in modern birds or crocodilians. Some fossil nests suggest dedicated guardianship, while others show signs of abandonment, of eggs left to fate. But standing here now, hidden in the grass, you feel certain this dinosaur's sleeplessness isn't born of mere instinct. It's born of purpose. Every night survived is a victory, not for itself but for its young. You see the toll of that purpose etched deep into its frame. The eye remains open, but the skin around it is lined and cracked, the lid heavy with fatigue it will not yield to. The muscles along its flanks tremble slightly as it stands exhausted beyond words, beyond even thought, driven only by the need to keep those young ones safe for one more night, one more dawn. And here's a curious little fact to add to your collection. Some species of modern birds that practice unihemispheric sleep, the kind where one eye stays open like our dinosaur, also position themselves so the open eye faces outward toward danger and the closed eye faces their companions. The instinct to guard runs deep, crossing the eons from feathered sky travelers to this ancient earthbound giant. The juveniles cluster around the larger dinosaur, now chittering softly, nudging at its legs with youthful impatience. They don't understand not yet what it has cost to bring them to this morning. They don't see the sleepless eye as anything but normal, don't realize that one day they may have to carry the same burden. But the dinosaur knows. And as the sun rises higher, washing the land in gold and warmth, it finally lets the sleepless eye close just for a moment, just long enough to feel the sun on its face and the weight of its duty lift, if only for a heartbeat. And you, hidden and humbled, witness that fleeting peace, that fragile triumph carved from the long dark hours. The day unfolds slowly, the light growing stronger, burning away the mist left behind by the storm. But for the dinosaur, even daylight brings no true rest. You watch as it moves stiffly across the plain, the young ones at its heels, their small forms darting and stumbling in the clumsy enthusiasm of youth. The adults' movements are careful, measured not from caution alone, but from the weight of exhaustion that drags at its limbs like invisible chains. Weeks of sleepless nights have left their mark carved deep into muscle and bone. You can see it now clearer than before. The faint tremor in its powerful legs as it walks, the slight droop of its tail. Once a proud counterbalance, now lowered by fatigue. The eye, though closed for a few precious moments at dawn, has opened again, unwilling or unable to surrender fully to rest, while the young are vulnerable. The price of endless vigilance is steep, and this creature is paying it step by weary step. Historians still debate the long-term cost of such adaptations. Did sleeplessness like this shorten lifespans? Leave creatures weaker, more prone to injury or illness? Some point to fossil evidence of stress fractures along limb bones, of worn joints and fused vertebrae, suggesting lives spent in tension, bodies pushed to the edge for too long. Others argue these signs reflect hard living in a harsh world, no different from what any large animal of the age would face. The arguments loop endlessly, as they always do. But standing here watching this dinosaur limp slightly as it moves toward safer ground, the toll feels undeniable. And here's a strange bit of trivia to tuck away: in certain species of modern fish, individuals deprived of sleep for long periods eventually lose their color patterns, their bodies unable to maintain the pigment balance without proper rest. Imagine if this dinosaur's hide, once vivid with pattern or hue, had dulled over weeks of sleepless nights, the world's most ancient camouflage faded by exhaustion. The young ones, oblivious to the depth of their guardian's fatigue, scatter. After insects in the grass chase each other in clumsy circles, their chirping calls rising into the warming air. The adult watches them, the open eye tracking their every move, no longer for threats beyond, but for the safety of these precious, reckless lives. Every twitch, every breath, every moment of watchfulness takes its toll. You can almost feel the ache of it in your own bones as you crouch there hidden, a silent witness to the price of survival. The dinosaur pauses near a shallow stream, lowering its head to drink the water rippling around its cracked beak. The eye stays open, watching the shadows under the reeds, the glint of light off the stones, anything that might signal danger. And as it drinks, you see the tremor again, the fatigue that water can't wash away, the weight that sleep might ease if only it could risk it. But it can't, not yet, not today. The price of endless vigilance is still being paid, and dawn has only just begun. The morning ripens into noon, the sun climbing high and casting sharp, unforgiving shadows across the plains. Heat shimmers on the horizon, distorting the landscape like a mirage, but the dinosaur keeps moving slow and deliberate, leading its young through the wavering haze. You stay low, feeling the sting of sun-warmed mud against your skin, watching as that single open eye scans the world with the same relentless focus it held through the night. Even under this glaring sun, it refuses rest. You can almost hear the voices of historians echoing across time, their arguments as heated as this midday air. Some claim this sleeplessness was genius, an evolutionary masterstroke that gave this dinosaur's kind an edge, letting it detect danger before it struck, keeping its young alive, in a world that never stopped trying to kill them. Others argue the opposite, that it was fear incarnate, the sign of a species so haunted by the memory of predation that it sacrificed rest, and with it health strength and perhaps even its future. Historians still debate whether sleeplessness was adaptation or desperation, whether it bought survival or hastened decline. And out here, under this vast empty sky, you realize both could be true at once. The dinosaur leads its young toward a grove of stunted trees, their gnarled limbs offering patches of welcome shade. The juveniles race ahead, chirping their enthusiasm unbroken by the night's unseen dangers. But the adult follows slower, the weight of sleepless weeks dragging at each step. The eye remains open, unwavering, the sun's glare reflected in its amber depths like fire caught in stone. You see the toll of endless vigilance in every strained muscle, every uneven breath, every subtle tremor that runs through its frame when it pauses just for a moment beneath the trees. And here's a strange side note to ponder: in some species of modern bats, prolonged sleep deprivation leads to changes in vocalizations, their calls growing erratic, less precise. You wonder if this dinosaur, too, might have once had a voice that carried strength and warning, now quieted by exhaustion, too spent to summon the calls that might rally its young or warn off threats. The grove offers scant shelter, but the dinosaur positions itself so that its open eye faces the open plain, the direction from which danger is most likely to come. Even now, it won't let down its guard. It leans slightly against a tree trunk as if borrowing strength from the land itself, but it does not close that eye. It cannot. The debate over genius or fear means nothing to it here. It only knows the need to endure, to watch, to keep its young alive until night falls again, and with it, the next test of its sleepless resolve. You crouch in the shade nearby, heart heavy with the quiet tragedy of it, watching as the dinosaur stands sentinel beneath the hard blue sky, caught between brilliance and doom, between courage and despair. The day begins to wane, the sun sinking slowly toward the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold. The air cools at last, the heat of noon, giving way to the gentler breath of evening. The juveniles, exhausted from their restless play, huddle beneath the trees, their sides rising and falling in the soft rhythm of sleep. But the adult, your sleepless sentinel, remains standing still and silent, its open eye reflecting the fading light like a shard of ancient amber. You feel the weight of that gaze, as if it sees beyond the horizon, beyond this day, beyond even itself. The dinosaur shifts slightly, as if the ground beneath its feet has grown too heavy. The long tail drags a little more, the mighty shoulders sag, and for the first time you see the full toll of its sleepless weeks. Every step, every heartbeat has been spent like a coin from a purse that's finally running empty. The young are safe for now, but you sense what the dinosaur surely knows in its bones. It cannot go on like this forever. Historians still debate the fate of this sleepless line. Some argue it was this very strategy, this brilliance, this sacrifice that allowed the species to endure longer than many of its contemporaries. Others believe the cost was too high, that sleeplessness wore them down, left them vulnerable to injury, disease, or simply the relentless pressures of a changing world. No fossil tells the full tale. No bone holds the last weary breath of a sleepless guardian. All we have are fragments and questions, and the echo of that open eye staring into the dark. And here's a final curious fact to leave you with. In modern whales, those that practice unihemispheric sleep often show scarring on one side of their bodies, subtle marks from navigating hazards while only half awake. You wonder if in some forgotten fossil there are marks like those quiet scars that tell of nights spent on the edge of dreams and danger. The sun sinks lower, the plains turning purple, then blue, then black once more. The juveniles stir in their sleep, soft chirps escaping into the night. The dinosaur stands watch as it always has, as it always will, until the last light fades and the final restless twilight claims its kind. The eye stays open even as the stars emerge, even as the night's chorus begins anew, a sentinel to the end. And you, hidden and small beneath the ancient trees, bear silent witness as the sleepless line fades into the dark. The final image softens now, as if blurred by distance and time. The dinosaur's outline melts into the night, and the weary eye, that last glint of amber, flickers then fades like a star behind clouds. You feel the hush of the plains settle over you, the world quieting, as if honoring the long watch that has ended. There is no more need for vigilance, no more weight to carry. Just peace, gentle, endless peace. And as you listen to the soft breath of the night wind, you know you've seen something rare, a glimpse of devotion written in sleeplessness, of survival carved from sacrifice. So rest easy now, friend. The story is done. The night is kind, and the watcher sleeps at last.